Elite Gaming.
What's up guys, it's Andrew at EliteGamingHQ, and I got a new video for you today. Today we're building a budget gaming PC. This PC will cost $500. Right now it's kind of hard to get your hands on a good GPU, but there is other options, along with there is some cheaper GPUs out there. And as in most of my builds, it is a platform for upgrades that you can easily get in the future. But for a second I want to talk about the game in the background. This is Hunt Showdown, which I feel like this is a pretty amazing game that you guys should keep your eyes on. I did a video talking all about Hunt and showing how to play and how the gameplay mechanics work. I'll put a card to that video above in case you guys are interested. Right now it's in closed alpha, but it feels different and it feels good. So as I go through this PC build, you can check out the footage in the background. Also, I was trying to get my face cam working and I'm trying to get my green screen straightened out. Right now I don't quite have it set up right. I need more lights, but I feel like the lights that I do have actually come out pretty good. Here's an example. In the future I'll be able to do face cams on some stuff whenever I feel like it really. Enough about all that. Let's get into the build. Okay, so today's build is going to be $500, give or take. It'll be a little more, but after rebates it'll be less. And with a couple variations I can give you here, you can make it more expensive or less depending on your personal budget. But with GPU prices where they're at, a $500 build is pretty amazing. Now before we get into the build, I also want to say if you're looking for a budget build with a GTX 1050, right now you can get one off of Amazon for $135. So that's actually a really good deal if you wanted to go another route. This build does not include Windows because people basically yell at me when I include Windows, but everyone knows how to get Windows, whether it be one way or another, or you might even already have it, which Windows 10's been out for years, so I'm sure a lot of people already have it. So the build's going to center around a Ryzen 5 2400G, which is an APU, 4 cores, 8 threads, that also has a GPU built in. So we can take a look at the cooler for this APU. As you see, it's nothing special, but at the same time, you're not going to do a lot of overclocking. With the B350 motherboard I've chosen, you're just going to lock this, I don't know, a little bit higher just so you don't have to rely on turbo and you get all cores at the same frequency. Not a big deal, but even not overclocked, this processor actually performs better than its counterpart, the Ryzen 5 1400. So there's almost no reason to go with this build and go with an upgrade path from this possible CPU because it's a foundation that you can constantly build on and not have to worry. You're not sacrificing anything here. And in fact, it's tweaked a little bit better than the old Ryzen 5s from last year, and it allows the use of higher frequency RAM. So pluses all around. Now, I bought myself the 2400G and the 2200G for testing. I have not concluded my testing yet, but at the end of the video, I will put benchmarks to popular games. So if you guys are looking for a specific game, you can kind of see how it's going to run. And as with the last APUs, there's a couple things you can do to get them to run really well. But let's get into the rest of the parts. For the motherboard, I have an MSI B350M Gaming Pro. I've used this motherboard a few times. It's nice, it has that red color to it, and red is going to be the theme of our build. That motherboard is going to go into the Cosmos case, which I've used this case before in the past. I'll try to put some pictures up here if I still have them. I found it to be a really nice case. It's got some interesting features, like you can actually put in a disk drive or anything like that right in the front when you open the little front door, which I thought that'd be cool. And it's $30 with a $5 mail-in rebate, so for $25 you can't really beat it. It's an amazing case. Although the one downfall I feel is this case has no front side USB 3.0. It's not a real deal breaker because anytime you need 3.0 to transfer stuff, you could always just use the motherboard because of course the motherboard has 3.0. The case only has 2.0 on the front. So that's up to you whether that's acceptable or not. For me, I don't feel it's a big deal, especially since this is a budget build and any kind of external hard drives or anything, you're just going to plug right into the motherboard. All right, next we're going to go to the RAM. Now there's a little bit of caveat for this RAM. For the inexpensive price, you're going to go with something like a Gskill Ripjaws. These are red, 16 gigs. Now this is DDR4 2400 and it's only $164.99, which is actually a pretty good deal right now. Although I would suggest upgrading to something like the Corsair Vengeance, going with a 3000 megahertz kit, because the faster your RAM, the better your APU is going to react. And also I do recommend going with 16 gigs in both of these scenarios. Now if you wanted to drop down, you could probably take $80 to $100 off your price if you went with 8 gigs. The problem with that is through all my testing, when I show you how much RAM you actually need, which I'll put a card up here for that if you want to check that out, particularly in PUBG, or I've also shown you in many other games, it seems like 8's the sweet spot. PUBG ran about 7.2 when I was recording. When I'm streaming, a lot more, of course, but when I was recording, a little over 7 gigs. The APU, you're going to allocate 2 gigs to your APU for video memory. So by doing this, you will limit yourself to 6 gigs of RAM. So I suggest going with 16. That's going to leave you with 14 gigs that your computer can use. You're going to have more than enough, which is going to be great. And even with this 8-thread processor, you could do some video editing. So I think that's pretty good, and I think it'll work out really well. Now, the speed of the RAM is very important because obviously that's your video card now. The APU uses that speed, and that's going to increase your graphics and your potential FPS. So usually RAM frequency doesn't matter, but in this case it actually does. I mean, it doesn't matter for gaming for the most part. It could be like 2 frames difference, but here it's important. Now, me personally, I picked myself up some RGB RAM, as I'll show you here, just because I wanted to test out the RAM itself, maybe do a review on the RAM and take a look at it. I've been working with the Gskill TridentZ RAM a lot. I've done a couple builds with this, and I just wanted to try something a little bit different. But these are the 2 RAM kits I recommend for this particular build, being on a budget and all. Alright, so next we have our hard drive. Now, your hard drive solution is really up to you. If you want to save a couple dollars, just go with a Western Digital blue 1TB drive. Can't beat it. Gonna pick it up for about $40 to $45. I think it's $46 actually, but not a bad price. You have plenty of space. For this build, I actually recommend though the ADATA Premier Pro, which is going to be a 250 gigabyte SSD. I think you're going to get a clear difference with your SSD over your 1TB drive, and later on you can always add the 1TB drive and not have to worry about moving Windows around because you'll have it on your SSD. So for getting the computer out of the box super fast, I would say go with the SSD, but this option is clearly up to you. Alright, next for the power supply, I would say go with the Corsair VS500. It's an 80 plus certified power supply. It is usually $40, which actually for an 80 plus 500 watt name brand Corsair power supply is really good. But there's also a $20 mail-in rebate on Newegg, so it puts it down to $19.99. You can't beat that, right? And even if you don't use the rebate, this power supply is still worth the money. Once again, if you want to learn more about power supplies, I go into detail about what the 80 plus rating stands for and also how many watts you really need. I'll put a card up here for that video, but it's safe to say without a video card in this system, you're running under 200 watts. 500 watts gives you plenty of headroom, and in fact, you can even upgrade up to a GTX 1070 with a 500 watt power supply to be right at the breaking point of pushing the limits. So I think this is a good option for very inexpensive price that's going to give you a clear future upgrade path as you're going to want with this APU. Then lastly, I would say add in a Cooler Master Sickle Flow fan. This is a 120mm fan you can pick up for $5, and where you're going to put it is in the back of the case because the case comes with a front red fan, but you kind of want a 120mm in and a 120 out. This way you get good even pressure in the case and great airflow. You don't want to turn your computer into a slow cooker, and you also don't want to rely on trying to use a power supply alone to exhaust your PC. This is never a good idea. This is the old way of building computers, something they did 10 years ago, exclusively using the power supply, but the power supply itself generates a lot of heat. So in most cases, what you kind of want to do is you want the power supply to have its own atmosphere. Alright, so that's going to conclude my $500 gaming build here. I'm going to put some benchmarks after this. These are some benchmarks I found from other YouTubers that I really like and trust their opinions, and I'll have my own benchmarks exclusively per game for both of these processors in time to come. I just have a little more testing to do. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you like what you see with the benchmarks. Leave your comments below if you want to ask or say anything, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching, guys.